Coming up on the show today, D&D Shorts has brought Dark Sun back into the conversation, and we react. Also, Daggerheart news, crazy dice alternatives, and more on your weekly TTRPG news roundup show.
Are you ready to get casual? Grab your favorite adult beverage or combustible plant and join us for our roundtable TTRPG discussion. Oh yeah, it's time for Casual Friday. And now, here are your hosts.
What's up? How we doing? You may have noticed that one of the floating heads from the video is not here with us. Ryan couldn't be with us today. He'll make up some reason why next week when we see him again. But hey, anyway, I'm Jim. That's Brad, and so we are here to do the show. So let's do that. The first thing we're going to talk about is Critical Role has announced the Age of Umbra Daggerheart campaign, which is starting. They're going to air a session 0 next Thursday, and the following Thursday they're doing an 8-week mini-series. Daggerheart, speaking of, my Daggerheart book is out for delivery. I'm waiting on the Uspus guy to come by and knock on my door. Any moment now, between now and 4:45 p.m., he will be here. So in Daggerheart, they have these campaign frames, which are like mini settings. They call them frames. This one of the Age of Umber is inspired by Dark Souls and those kind of very gritty, very dark things. In this world, when people die, they come back as sort of revenant, kind of nightmarish beings that are controlled by this thing called the Umbra. The main reason I wanted to talk about this is so they're doing the full cast for 8-episode miniseries, and this broke my heart because I'm pretty sure this means that campaign 4 will be 5th edition.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they were gonna do, I feel like if they were gonna transition to Daggerheart, they wouldn't do this miniseries.
Yeah, well, is it possible they're testing the waters to see if they can get enough traction with Daggerheart to make their annual campaign a Daggerheart campaign?
Could be. You could be right. I don't know. I do know that now that they record everything in advance. So I know that these 8 episodes are already in the can. So by the time I don't know, by the time it airs, you'd feel like they probably would have had to already make a decision on campaign 4, or maybe not. Maybe they have random stuff planned throughout the whole summer and fall so they can give it 6 months. But I just feel like if they make campaign 4 full-time Daggerheart might actually take a chunk out of D&D's market share. Like, it could be a real contender, you know?
Yeah, I think you're right. I guess the question they're trying to answer are they willing to take a chunk out of their own profits in order to, take a chunk out of WotC's?
Well, that's a good question. Do you think people might be turned off if they're not playing Dungeons and Dragons anymore?
I don't think so. I'm not, I'm not a diehard critter, so I watch kind of bits and pieces of season 1, and I tried to get re-engaged, I guess, and faithfully follow season 3, I think it was. But I just haven't been able to, dedicate that much time out of my week to watch other people play. So I don't know. I don't have my finger on the pulse of the community, but it seems like the community is more loyal to them than they are to Dungeons and Dragons. That's my impression.
100%. Yeah, there are. It might surprise you to learn that there is a significant percentage of people who watch Critical Role who don't play tabletop games at all.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, so that seems.
I watch football every Sunday, and I can't throw a pigskin to save my life.
I mean, that's same here, right? I love watching football, but I've never played organized football, right? Just pick up games with friends growing up as a kid. I was always a basketball and volleyball guy growing up. So, but NFL is just a really great product to watch. So,
yeah.
Even though I used to coach high school basketball, and I grew up playing basketball. I don't enjoy the NBA like I used to, and the NFL is just a better product. It's just something I'm more interested in these days.
Go Nuggets. Nuggets game 7 against the Thunder tomorrow. Boom, baby.
Yeah. NBA just doesn't excite me anymore. I don't know.
Well, maybe if you had a good team like mine.
There's that.
It might excite you. Anyway, we got to stop talking about sports.
Yeah, we'll run up all the TTRPG nerds if we talk about sports too long.
Yeah, Nacho's not here for the sports talk. So I am still incredibly curious to find out what's going to happen with Critical Role. Not just because I'm a fan of Critical Role, but because I am a fan of watching 5E's Destiny rise and fall.
That's the new hobby.
Right.
Yeah.
Whichever way it goes, I find interesting and I find worthwhile, something to talk about. So I'm very curious to see, if anyone is going to unseat Dungeons and Dragons, it could be Darrington Press, but only if they really push and try.
Yeah. And this might be kind of a boring take, but I wonder if the rise and fall of D&D is merely cyclical. Right? 2E wasn't as popular as other editions. 4E wasn't as popular as other editions. And so maybe this is just the cycle. Like 1E is super popular, 2E, 3 and 3.5 super popular, 4E meh, right? 5E super popular, 5.5 meh. Like it's just, that might just be the pattern of Dungeons and Dragons. Like
right. If you think about it, there was an arc that went from the original OGL, a rise and fall, and then a rebirth, and then 5th edition pulled everyone back.
right.
Pathfinder 4E was bad. Pathfinder siphoned off a lot of people, and they managed to rebound with 5th edition, right? But it seems like they're in the middle of another downswing because 5.5 isn't the curative that they had hoped. And there was the OGL thing, the Pinkertons, all of these stupid stepping on rake scandals. And so, either they're going to go down or there's going to be in 5 years a 6th edition that will save the day because it'll be a really good role-playing game.
Yeah, I think that's the likely pattern, right? If we base, the best predictor of the future is the past, right? So if we look at the pattern of history from editions, like we were just saying, because the other aspect of that is not only was 4E not as popular as a game, right? Even though it wasn't a bad game, I think we've come full circle. Matt Colville has argued vehemently the 4th edition was a well-designed game, as well as like Teos Abadia and Sly Flourish, and you can make that argument that 4E is a well-designed game. It just didn't feel like Dungeons and Dragons for those of us who grew up on Dungeons and Dragons. But I think obviously a big contributing factor is the economic decisions that the company's made, right? 2nd edition, TSR really cracked down. There was a lot of like threats of lawsuits and that sort of thing, trying to protect their intellectual property. 4th edition had a gaming license that was super restrictive and nobody wanted to use. The original OGL from 3rd edition, just blew things wide open with so many D20 variants, third-party publisher stuck content. So when D&D has been its strongest is when they've been the most open to third-party products, and when they've been at their weakest is when they've been closed off to third-party products. And they tried to fix that this go around by putting everything in Creative Commons, and that's clearly, I think, a good step moving forward. But it's too little, too late. They already recreated the cycle, I think, with the OGL debacle.
Hey, Brad, I just noticed your background. The lights are new, right?
Fairly new.
That looks awesome.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, the fact that I hadn't noticed it till now speaks to how good it is because it's very subtle, very nice coloring in the skull, very nice.
Oh, thank you.
So moving on from Daggerheart news, I eagerly await my book. It should be here today. I can't wait to flip through it, and I'm excited about the cards and all the stuff.
Well, real
But
quick before we move on, Daggerheart, is that going to be your go-to game moving forward? Is that what you think?
it depends. It depends on if they fixed some of the things I had gripes about during the playtest. Because I ran the playtest for 4 or 5 months. I did a pretty thorough, including it was like levels 1 to 3. I think we went. So I haven't done any high level Daggerheart. But if they've tightened up a few of the rules and fixed a few of the things that bothered me, then 100%. Because I would rather play that then because I still haven't really invested the time to learn 2024 D&D.
Mm-hmm.
I know bits and pieces, but I feel like it's like they released it at a good time because I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to switch to a new system.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm feeling the same way. I'm playing 5.5 right now, and um, feeling the same way that I want a new system. I don't think it's going to be Daggerheart for me. But
can I run Daggerheart for you?
Yeah, I'd be happy to play it if you want to run it. But yeah, I'm not thrilled with 5.5. And I don't think that's because there's anything wrong with 5.5. I just think it's just not different enough. I mean, I loved 5th edition and I ran it for 10 straight years. I'm just ready for something new, and 5.5 isn't new enough for me. So,
and Will asks a very legitimate question: why don't I just tighten it myself and go for it? And I might. It's not just what I say if they fix the rules. It's not just that. It's also going to be depending on how easy it is, like to find players for it. That's a big determining factor. If I have to scrape the bottom of the barrel to put together 4 people who want to play Daggerheart, that's not going to cut it. I need to find people who are willing to play, and even people who are more than I need, so I'll have alternates for when those people don't show up. If the system doesn't hit, then I'm not gonna spend years of my life running it. But I want to try.
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky. My gaming group is pretty faithful to the group. We all enjoy playing together, and my group has made it pretty clear that they don't care what system they play, as long as we continue to play regularly. So that's, I guess I'm kind of lucky in that respect.
Yeah, you got a great group. Not everyone is as privileged. So now moving on, the next thing, this news came out like a week and a half ago or so, but I wasn't on the show last week. But now, if you know this name Chepeku, or CZP, everybody, there's lots of ways you could say it, but it's Che and Peku. They're 2 people, and they smush their names together. That's where it comes from. They are the best map makers in the biz. I think Matt Colville mentioned them in a video 2 or 3 years ago and kind of put them on the map. But they make absolutely amazing maps. Like the 2 5e adventures that I put on DM's Guild, I thought about making my own maps, and I was like, why not so I just actually use Chepeku maps for the adventures that I put on the DM's Guild, because why not just go with the best? They're amazing.
So did you just use pre-existing maps for your adventures? Because I've seen your adventures, I know the maps. Or did you are those like stamps and tools you combine to make those?
Those are their just existing maps. They have a use policy. You can use their maps as long as you don't include full-size versions, and you have to include a link to the original file. But other than that, you can use their maps for streaming as long as you mention their name. And in the map, you have to include a watermark. So you have to edit the image and add the watermark to be able to use it. But they're very cool about that. Yeah, they don't even want any royalties or anything. So that's another reason why they're one of the best, because they're just cool.
That is cool.
So yeah, you can get those on D&D Beyond. I would recommend instead of going and throwing down cash for individual maps, you can join their Patreon for $1. You get the entire history of all their maps. I pay $1 a month just to get their emails to see what their new maps look like because I just think they're cool. So I pay $1 a month just to like look at the maps and go, oh wow, and I'll probably never use most of them. But you can also do higher tiers because they each map they put out like multiple versions, like to put out a here's the battlefield covered in snow or at nighttime, and so higher tiers you get those. But $1 a month, just go pay $1 and spend a couple hours downloading maps that you might want to use. They are high quality.
Sounds cool.
All right, so moving on. This might be a shorter show today because we are. I don't know if Brad and I are going to do our best to give you 150% each, but
make up for Ryan's absence.
Downtime mechanics. Yeah, that's the thing I'm most excited about. I've seen lots of games attempt downtime mechanics and never found one that really felt like it nailed it. But Daggerheart, I think, might be the system with good downtime mechanics. Very eager to see if they changed anything about those. All right, so moving on. I stumbled on this article from a website called Dungeons and Dragons Fan. It's Dungeons and Dragons Fanatics, but the website is dungeonsdragonsfan.com. With the 10 best D&D campaigns for beginners. I'm not saying that I condone this exact order or any of that, but we're just going to talk about it a little bit. Let me roll through the list, then we can talk about which ones we've run and our opinions. So this is their top 10 campaigns for beginners. Ghost of Saltmarsh, Quest from the Infinite Staircase, Tales from the Yawning Portal, Journeys through the Radiant Citadel, Candlekeep Mysteries, The Wild Beyond the Witchlight, Waterdeep Dragon Heist, Dragons of Stormwreck Isle, Dragon of Icespire Peak, and Lost Mine of Phandelver. So, how do you want to do this, Brad? Do you want to just spit out your thoughts? Do you want to go adventure by adventure and say?
Yeah, let's go adventure by adventure. I've got thoughts on all of these, I think.
Tell me about Ghost of Saltmarsh.
I like Ghost of Saltmarsh, at least the first 4 adventures. I mean, I could see running this campaign all the way through. I've run the first 3, and I ran the first 2 back in AD&D, I think. The Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh is one of my favorite starting adventures. It has this kind of Scooby-Doo theme to it. But I think this adventure gets some hate that it doesn't really deserve. The hate comes from the marketing more so than the product itself, because it was marketed as a swashbuckling, seafaring adventure, and it's not. It's more of the creepy seaside, Lovecraftian kind of adventure, I think. When I ran it, I just, you start off with the haunted house that's not haunted in the first adventure, and then you go from there to a bunch of other like actual supernatural threats. So I think you could very much run this as more of a action horror adventure versus swashbuckling pirate adventure. And if you focus it with that mindset, I think it comes across as a much stronger series of adventures.
Yeah, I think I've run about half of it, maybe a third. I've run 2 or 3 of them for sure. I prefer it to Tales from the Yawning Portal because there's actually a setting here and actually, NPCs that you can. A lot of the NPCs don't deeply integrate to more than one adventure, but you can. There's enough there that you can plot it out into an actual campaign world if you want to run a port side adventure. And also, I think that the 4th level adventure Salvage Operation is one of the best D&D adventures ever.
That's a good one.
Not for beginners though, because it's the kind of adventure that, like, I don't want to spoil it, but it tricks the adventurers into spending all their resources, thinking that the adventure's over. But then the adventure's like the real terror begins, and everybody's all out of resources and low on hit points, and now the serious drama begins. So I don't know if I'd throw that at brand new players.
Well,
But
but maybe by the time they get to, because by the time you run that fourth adventure, they're what, sixth level?
yeah, I think it's 4 to 5. Yeah,
Yeah,
some
something like that. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
or telegraph the upcoming horror.
yeah, I think I think it's a solid adventure, and I mean, Sinister Secret of Salt Marsh is one of my favorite, first level adventures.
Yep. Moving on, number 9, Quest from the Infinite Staircase. I haven't played or run any of these adventures as they are in this book. I have some of the old school stuff,
Hmm.
but I bought this and I read it and reviewed it, and it's got some great art. And a couple of the adventures seem pretty cool the way they're updated for 5e. Some of them seem like they should not have been updated for 5e. Like that, there's one in the oh, it's the 8th level adventure. It's not called the Pharaoh's Tomb, but it's basically an Egypt ripoff. You go
Hmm.
into a pyramid, and it's just this insane map that you would never be able to figure out.
Yeah, that's definitely the weakest link in this anthology. Um, the I've run the Falling Star out of this book, and I enjoyed it. I think it's a good adventure. I think that's the third and fourth level adventure. I really like it. Back in the day, I ran Expedition from the Barrier Peaks back in AD&D. One of my favorite adventures from back then.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, the
Oops, it didn't. Pharaoh. Thank you, Mr. Welch. That is the name of the adventure.
yeah,
Hickman map design will be like rooms. Yeah, a
yeah,
lot of rooms.
lots of yeah,
Lots of rooms. All right, we don't have a whole lot to say about this one. Moving on, Tales from the Yawning Portal. I think it has a couple of the adventures that are really, really good. Sunless Citadel is one of my absolute favorite adventures. I
yep,
was a little bummed that there wasn't more setting information. That it's like, here's the Yawning Portal, and here's a guy, and he's gonna tell you a bunch of stories. They didn't try
yeah.
as hard as they did in Ghosts of Saltmarsh.
I think the best way to use at least the low level adventures here, so Sunless Citadel, Forge of Fury. I think the best way to I've used those two. Sunless Citadel I've run probably 5 times uh, across multiple editions. Um, but both of those you can just set on the Sword Coast. I've run them as part of a sandbox alongside of the Essentials kit and the Fandelver adventures. So, uh, if you pull out your map of the Sword Coast, Sunless Citadel is at the top, and then you've got Fandelver at the bottom. You got Waterdeep in between, and then you can put the Forge of Fury in the mountains off to the east. And the Forge of Fury, the it's a magic forge that makes magic weapons. So it's perfect to link to the Fandelver adventures. Because there's the magic forge and those adventures as well. So you can just link all that into a cool big sandbox, and it's a blast.
Nice. Moving on, Journeys to the Radiant Citadel. It's one I heard so much about when it came out, and I've heard it's great. I have not read a page of it. I know nothing about it.
I've read it. I haven't run any of them yet. I want to. So I've, you know, like what I just described, I like building a sandbox. I'll take 3 or 4 adventures and kind of put them all in a sandbox. And so I want to do that with these. I just haven't found the connective tissue that I want to like run alongside these adventures. But yep, but that's it's on my short list.
Moving on to Candlekeep Mysteries. I did run this one. I ran about half of it, half of the 16 or 17 adventures. Because the group I was running for, after we finished the campaign, they said, look, what we want is we want to play where we have a base of operations and we have a boss who sends us out on missions from that base. They wanted a patron. They didn't want to like decide. They wanted to be told what to do. And I was like, okay, fine, we can do that. So I thought, what if I made them Candlekeep cops? And they were gonna be like security forces at Candlekeep. And this Candlekeep Mysteries does have a really a solid chapter about Candlekeep
Hmm.
with some good plot threads, like the Great Worm who lives in the basement, and there's some other plot threads. But what I found when I was running it is that all the adventures take you away from Candlekeep.
Hmm.
And it's like I thought I wanted to run a campaign in Candlekeep where they're like could do a dungeon delve underneath it and this kind of stuff. But most of the adventures are like you get a book and then that book takes you on an adventure way far away. And so they weren't really satisfied because they were never at their home base, Conan the Librarian. Indeed. But some of the adventures are really good. There's the ninth level one that was written by, I can't remember what it's called, but it was written by Amy Vorpahl, where there's some kind of conspiracy happening at Candlekeep, and one of the towers turns into a rocket. It's wild. We had a lot of fun with that one. I don't know. Do you have any experience with Candlekeep?
Not that book. No, the most experience I have with Candlekeep is it makes an appearance in one of the, I think the first Baldur's Gate game, the first Baldur's Gate or second Baldur's Gate game. It's one of those. You actually go to Candlekeep, if I remember right. So when I first saw this that was my thought, that if I wanted to run like a Baldur's Gate adjacent, game using the Gazetteer, because honestly, what's the Avernus adventure? I started to run that. I wasn't impressed with the Avernus stuff really, but I like the Gazetteer, and I actually like the idea of just running the campaign in Baldur's Gate. So I kind of thought about using this as like side quests for a Baldur's Gate campaign.
It makes sense. Candlekeep is very geographically close to Baldur's Gate on the Sword Coast. All right, moving on. Wild Beyond the Witchlight. I ran this one. I loved it. My players are not the people who I ran this for were not really plugged into the D&D community, so they would not have heard that very well marketed thing about how it's an adventure that you could do without any combat at all. I never said anything about that to them, and there was a lot of combat, trust me. So that whole thing about you could do it without combat, you could do it without combat if you try really hard and make perfect decisions at a lot of very important points. But no, we had combat every session, and this one's fun. I think this is great for beginners. I would not advise this one for beginner DMs, because chapter 1 is is a very large sandbox of the Witchlight Carnival, and like the players can go anywhere. And when I was a new DM, the idea of the world widening and players suddenly being able to go anywhere was terrifying.
Yeah, I don't have any experience with this one. I've not played it or run it. Probably this one and Candlekeep are the only two on the list that I don't have much experience with it. But it's definitely, of the 5e adventures that I haven't run yet, this and Radiant Citadel are kind of the two that I still want to do.
Yeah, this one is it's a great read too. There's lots of good whimsical fey crap that you can steal, like the first when they go from the real world, the material world, into the Fae. The first people they encounter are this group of Harengon, these group of bunny bandits who steal memories. So they carry around they's jars, and they're like, give us a memory or you're dead. And so there's just like interesting Fae stuff like that. Waterdeep Dragon Heist. I've read this one. I haven't run it. I don't think this is good for beginners at all. It's way too open world, way too sandboxy.
Yeah, I don't think it's good for beginner DMs. I've run it for beginner players. I ran it at my local game shop for new players, and we had a blast with it. But yeah, I mean, you want to be an experienced DM to run this. There's a lot of component parts to it, but it's a good adventure. What's neat about it is you have the 4 different villains that you can choose from. I used all 4 of them. I didn't pick one. I had all 4 villains at play. But again, that's my style. I like doing a big sandbox with different factions, creating that dramatic tension between factions and the players get caught up in between. Like that's just how I run a game. So this fit perfectly for my DM style.
Moving on, number 3, Dragons of Stormwreck Isle. I haven't read it. I haven't played it. I know Sly Flourish gushes about this one. Do you have any experience with this?
I've read it. I played it and I've read it. I think it's definitely one that's good for a new DM because it's pretty linear. You have some clear choices. There's there's 2 different adventures that you can choose which order to go on. Like you can go to the caves or you can go to the shipwreck. But it so it gives choice, but it still stays within a linear structure. I think it's very easy for a new DM to run. I would say this would probably be at the top of my list if we're talking brand new DM.
And then you could probably already guess what number 2 and number 1 are. Dragon of Icespire Peak. I haven't played it all the way through, but I like how the quests are very modular. Like you go into town and there's a board and you pick 1, 2, or 3, and then you come back and you pick 2 or 3. And I have stolen a couple of those adventures, even though the maps are garbage. But I know that it's very common for people to blend Dragon of Icespire Peak with our number 1 answer, The Lost Mine of Phandelver.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has run and played Lost Mine of Phandelver. We don't need to. Multiple times. Do you have much experience with Icespire Peak compared to Phandelver?
I've run the 2 together. I ran a sandbox with these 2, Sunless Citadel and Fury Forge. I put all 4 of those in a big old sandbox and ran all those together. So I think it's a great Essentials kit. If you run them both together, Essentials kit is a great complement to Lost Mine of Phandelver. You have to fiddle with the difficulty settings, because your players are not going to do everything between 1st and 4th level the way it's written if you're running both of these. I also bought the Essentials kit when I worked at adolescent ward at a hospital, and the kids, 2 of the kids just ate this up, the Essentials kit box set, and so these are like 15, 16-year-old kids, and they were able to take this and run games for the rest of the kids on the ward. So I think that speaks volumes as to how well it's designed. That 15-year-olds were able to pick this up and DM it.
And the Essentials kit was the one that came with like NPC cards and cards for
sidekick
potions.
rules.
It had a bunch of cards that you could pass out, and the Phandelver starter box was more stripped down from what I remember. It didn't have a lot of that extra stuff in it. But also, Brad here wants to toss in another option. Tell us about the Claws of Madness. This is one of your picks.
Yeah, this would be one of my top picks for new DM, new player. It's a cool like level 1 through 3 adventure. Has a good starting town. It's not nearly as extensive as Phandelver, but there's more to it than Sunless Citadel's Oakhurst. Right, it's kind of just the right balance of a small starting town, and the adventure moves quickly from town to this island off the coast, with a creepy kind of Lovecraftian themed villain, and a pair of brothers, and you're not really sure which one's the bad guy. You have to figure that out. It's a good, it's a really great starting adventure with a little bit of horror and mystery thrown in there.
Well, cool.
It's one you could definitely mix in, like if you're running a Salt Marsh campaign, you could put this town, like north of Salt Marsh on the map, and have this little island out there. If you wanted a little extra to kind of spice up your Ghost of Saltmarsh campaign.
Right. Cool. Yeah, that's the Claws of Madness by Lore Smith.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I would definitely include that on my top 10 list of starting adventures.
There you go.
So it's a good one that starts off at level 1.
Yeah, my favorite, my top beginner adventure I would vote would be the Meeting at Deep Night from Defiance and Flan. Oops, phone's ringing. Sorry.
I'm not familiar with that one.
It's Defiance and Flan was a Adventures League, Adventures League thing written by Sean Merwin, and it's 4 basically 2-hour scenarios based around the town of Flan, and there's one of them called the Meeting at Deep Night, which I think is the best D&D adventure probably ever.
Oh wow.
That and Sunless Citadel. And Phandelver, I think, but the old Phandelver, not the new one. You don't need to run it all the way to 12th level.
The stuff by Sean Merwin is good. I've not run into a Sean Merwin adventure that I didn't like.
Right.
His if you're looking for a good low level adventure, especially if you want to run it for kids, the one he did. Oh crap! I'm drawing a blank on the name now.
The other one that came out recently.
The one with the silver, the one with the dragon egg.
Yeah, I know.
Peril of something.
Pinebrook.
Peril Pinebrook. That one.
Yeah, that one's really good. It's because it's written to instruct you how to run it.
Right.
Which is a thing that I wish more low-level adventures did. I wish more low-level adventures assumed that the DM was low-level too.
Yeah. Peril and Pinebrook's definitely written to teach you how to DM, and it's also like it's not tough. Like if you like, I ran it for experienced players, and I definitely had to like upgrade the monsters because it's not a hard adventure. But that's why I've also run it for kids and they loved it. So even though one of the kids burned down the store in town.
Yeah, that's gonna happen. That's gonna happen.
There's not a store. There is no town in the adventure, but the players wanted to go to town, and then they decided to burn down a store. I think they set me up for that.
All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about here is just something a little fun, some dice alternatives. I am fascinated with dice and, big surprise. Fascinated with dice and funky kinds of dice, different weird kinds of dice. I'm fascinated with stuff like Bluetooth dice. I don't want to buy Bluetooth dice and use them, but I'm interested that they exist, and I'm interested to see what they can do with dice technology in the future. Well, one of the things that they do with dice technology are these spinners. This is a spinner that goes from D4 all the way up to D100. It's called the Dice Tower Spinner. These I like quite a bit. These are just pencils with the numbers, because pencils have 6 sides. So there's numbers on each side of the pencil. So how great is that? You're writing with a pencil and then you just roll it to roll the die. I think that's pretty interesting. And this is a Call of Cthulhu specific spinner. Which if I was playing Call of Cthulhu, I might look into something like this, because I'll be honest, I don't like percentile dice. I just don't like it. I don't like that it takes 2 steps to figure out the number, because you have to look at 2 things. And I don't like smaller number better. I can't get past it. Cannot get past smaller number better. My brain, it just breaks my brain every time.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. I'm not a fan of the roll under stuff. The only game I played where I actually got used to roll under was the old Top Secret SI. It's percentile and you got to roll under. But one of the cool things about that game is
Lucky 13.
No, the tens place determines your hit location, because like you have hit points for 10 different body locations. So you got head, 3 different chest locations, and your arms and legs. So the tens place also determines which part of the body you hit, and then your skills go up to level 5. So if you're skilled in a weapon beyond level 0, then you can bump the location by that many points. So like if you're third level skill with your handgun and you roll a 9, you can bump that to like a 6 and hit their hand instead of their leg, right? So it was a clever design in the system that your hit location was part of your 2-hit roll, and that was interesting enough that I got over the roll under aspect. So
I remember my brother playing Top Secret, and I have the Top Secret New World Order, and that uses a Lucky 13 system that the DC to do anything is 13, and you roll 1 die, and you can have other bonus dice, so it's dice pool system. But I thought that was kind of interesting. So moving on is a new segment. Brad doesn't know what this is on the agenda, but it's kind of a segment that we've kind of done for a while, but I'm just calling it Homebrew of the Week. Because as I'm driving around, I have little homebrew ideas that pop into my head. So I thought I'm going to force Brad to workshop this with me live on the air right here. But so a couple weeks ago, we were talking about fermented healing potions was an idea. So I thought about, healing arrows are an idea. That's the thing that's already existed. But I thought, what about arrows that have a hollowed out shaft so you can pour a healing potion into them? So you have to expend a healing potion first to pour it into the arrow. But then when you shoot somebody with a healing potion, you damage them. So you have to roll the hit and you do the damage. But because it can inject the healing potion directly intravenously, the healing potion does more. So you roll the hit, and then you roll your 1d8 plus 4 damage for the longbow attack, but then the healing potion does double. Could go ahead. What do you think, Brad?
My players would love that. My players they love the chaos. They like gambling mechanics. They like wild magic. They would be all about the like risk reward of I have to deal damage before I can heal you. My players would eat that up. I don't know about your min-maxer, power gamer, optimizer folks. I don't know if what they would think about that.
Yeah, I haven't run the numbers on how much more powerful the healing potion would need to be. But it would basically be a situation where on average you would get about the same amount of healing you would. But because you're still making an attack, there's the risk of a crit, or
right.
There's the risk of just a good dice roll on the damage and a bad dice roll on the healing. So, if you the risk reward daggers, tipped, and healing potions. I don't know. I guess I'm just mad that we can't in 5e throw healing potions at people like you can in Baldur's Gate 3. That's so great. In Baldur's Gate 3, you just throw a potion at somebody and it works.
Wasn't there a Star Wars game where they had like Bacta grenades?
Oh,
I seem to remember that being. It was like a splash healing effect.
Twin Steel says that 3e had had a capsule arrow. Yeah, you'd have to be really desperate if it didn't do extra healing, right?
Yeah.
You have to be very, very desperate.
I could see you could do it with like a blowgun too, right? Because the blowgun doesn't do a lot of damage.
Huh.
Like
healing darts.
Healing darts, yeah.
That would be a cool monk thing. Healing darts.
Yeah.
Or like the what's the healer monk? The Way of Mercy.
Mm-hmm.
They should have healing darts.
Now I want to introduce it. Like I want to give it to my NPCs first. Like I want to give it to a bunch of lizard folk. A bunch of lizard folk with blowguns, and they attack the party, and then all of a sudden some lizard folk in the back like
they're shooting their own guys.
Wait, what? They're healing them? What? And then of course the players are going to be like, how do we get those?
Yeah. Nice.
That'd be fun.
All right, so moving on to the section of the show that we call the catch up, where we just say hey and say what we're doing. Hi, I'm GM Jim. That over there's Brad from Dire Den. Brad, what do you got going on?
I am currently working on a video about alignment. And because I've been addicted to it, I'm using the characters from Andor to discuss alignment and how to role play alignment in your games. Because we all know that alignment has no real mechanical effects anymore, and a lot of people say it doesn't belong in the game anymore because it's kind of useless. I think it's still a useful role play tool, and so that's what I'm working on. It's what I thought was going to be a short little video has turned into this whole, like you do. It's taken much longer to put together than I thought it was going to, but I'm having fun with it.
I think if you use inspiration the way it was written in the 2014 book, then there is more. Because the way it's written in 2014 is you give it out for good role playing, right? That's one of the things it says you can give it out for. And so that's like a salve for a lot of mechanical wounds, I think. You could say, well, what's the purpose of role playing alignment? Why do I have to portray chaotic neutral? Well, I'll give you inspiration if you do it.
Right. Well, and one of the things that's implied in the with the inspiration and the bonds, ideals, flaws. I forget the fourth one. There's 4 things there. It's implied because it says in the book, like it gives alignment descriptors next to some of those ideals, bonds, flaws, right? And it implies that when you pick your ideals, bonds, flaws, you also kind of attach those to your alignment. Like, if I'm chaotic good, I have this chaotic part of myself that leads to this flaw, right? So my ideal, because I'm chaotic good, is freedom. That's my ideal. But because of freedom, I also have this flaw of impulsivity or something like that. That's implied with the way it's written, but it doesn't explicitly tell you to attach your elements of your alignment to your ideals, bonds, and flaws. So it seems like there was more to it when they wrote it, and then they edited a bunch of it out, is what it looks like to me.
Yeah, ideals, bonds, and flaws are gone from 2024, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I never thought those were very useful. What I'm working on Sunday, we've got a video coming out with a compilation of some of my favorite moments from when we watched classic D&D stuff on Landlocked Warlocks. That's going to be coming out on my channel. Also, if you don't know, I just put out a one-page, it's actually 2, one-page RPG called Not Here to Make Friends. You can get that on Drive-Thru RPG. It is a mashup of, it's basically one-page TTRPG version of The Bachelor. Basically, it's a GM-less game where you and your friends can get together and compete to win the heart of an NPC that you build together. Brad's played it. I've played it. I think we had fun.
Yeah, it was definitely a fun game. I like the GM-less aspect of the game. It's definitely
somebody says something, it's canon. You just have to roll with it. There's no GM to say no, that doesn't count.
Yeah, and it's definitely leans into the collaborative storytelling process. So it's a fun game. I like it. I've also been playing our You Dare last 2 weeks. I've had some of my regulars not be able to show up for my D&D game, so we've been doing You Dare one shots, and my players are having a lot of fun with You Dare. We did a sci-fi horror 2 weeks ago, and we did a cyberpunk themed adventure last night.
It is universal, so you can run it with anything you want to run, pretty much for a one shot though. Campaigns. Why would you hear that? I just went the teenage boy on The Simpsons. Oh, here's your popcorn, sir. Enjoy your movie. Campaigns though, not so much. Maybe we're working on that. You Dare campaign mode. I had some ideas I wanted to discuss with you, Brad.
Sounds good. I like it.
All right, so moving on, getting to our main topic and being able to justify the reason why we could put D&D shorts on the thumbnail of this video is we're going to talk a little bit about Dark Sun. Dark Sun originally came out in 1991, I guess was third, right, or second, I don't know. Anyway, it came out in
It's
1991.
2E, yeah.
2E, and then was most recently put out in 2010 for 4E. And the reason we're talking about it now is that just a few days ago, Will from D&D Shorts made a video that I thought was very in depth, very fair look at Dark Sun and a look at the controversies. And he spotlighted the bad, and I think he spotlighted the good of the system. But let me just read about Dark Sun here real quick. You can get it on TTRPGs, and it says, this game supplement explores the heroes and wonders of Athos, a savage desert world abandoned by the gods and ruled by terrible sorcerer kings. So no gods, arcane magic. The use of arcane magic is bad for the world. D&D Shorts completely missed the point. Everybody was psychic. He did not mention that. Nope, he didn't talk about that. But so, well, D&D Shorts takeaway. Let me just say this, and then we'll open this up for discussion. His takeaway was that it's about climate change, and it is a critique of billionaire industrialists, and it is anti-authority, anti-cop. That's his takeaway. But it's also reliant on bad tropes like halflings being cannibalistic islanders. There's a word that starts with P and ends with Y. I don't think you're supposed to say anymore. Not pussy. That's not what I was thinking. Also, but you know what I mean, right? When I say that for a name for a certain type of islander, the name Mull being based on the word mule is not very nice. And how the slavery is deeply ingrained. Slavery is not option. It's not like an optional thing you could do in Dark Sun. It's pretty much deeply ingrained into every character in the world. So what do you think, Brad?
Yeah, well, I would add to that list of kind of problematic, if we're using that word. There's also this kind of genetic engineering kind of aspect to it, that the moles, the dwarf hybrids, and the Goliaths are kind of genetically engineered. So that conjures up some problematic history. So yeah, there's definitely things in here that lean into the darker, more evil side of humanity. I see Will's point that kind of the intention is that the player characters, especially when you're reading the 4th edition version, the player characters are intended to be heroes fighting against all that stuff, right? That they, at least with the 4th edition version, they're taking all that evil and they're saying it's evil, but the players are expected to be part of the what is it called? Like something, the Veiled Alliance, I think is what it's called. The players are supposed to be part of that, good faction standing against all these different evil things. So, I get his point. That seems to be the intention, at least the way it's written for 4th edition. I don't remember that being that overt in the 2nd edition version, like the expectation that you're supposed to be a hero. I don't remember that from the 2nd edition version. But yeah, the other thing that I think people like about this setting is like Mr. Welch was saying, the psychic aspect, like the psychic mechanics are first and foremost. There is kind of this theme that arcane magic is bad, so you're supposed you're supposed to lean more towards the psychic version of play for your caster type characters. There's also the survival aspect, the resource management, the brutality of the desert itself lends itself to that kind of survival style. So there's a lot of things people like about the setting that has nothing to do with that kind of the evil stuff that is kind of problematic today. So I think those are kind of my thoughts on all this. Ultimately, I kind of agree with his point that it would be difficult to publish this today. Because I think you would want to publish it with the design intention, kind of like they tried with the 4th edition book, to suggest that players should be the heroes fighting against these evils, right? And as a DM, I would be totally willing to run Dark Sun if my players wanted to play in it. I think there's interesting ideas here. There's interesting game design to the setting. I would be willing to run Dark Sun as a DM. I wouldn't run it for players I didn't know, right? But I would run it for my group or my friends, where we could, have discussions about, any of these things that might, bother people or upset people. I know my player group wouldn't have a problem tackling some of these subjects. And I could definitely run it from the point of view that these are the bad guys and they're doing bad things. And you're expected as heroes to stop these bad things, right? I would definitely be okay running that game. But I could see how it would be difficult to publish that for a role-playing game that's intended to be open world, right? Because you don't really know what other people are going to do with it.
Yeah, this is this question here. WotC won't publish it, but I wonder if a third party would take a risk. Well, I mean, you still can buy it. You're looking at the webpage right now where you can buy it. But if we're talking about like updating it for 5th edition, WotC would never let that. They would never let some third party. They would never just give away the rights, or Will made a point near the end of the video that I thought was pretty good. Brad kind of touched on already that they couldn't be made today because it's challenging material. And WotC won't make challenging things because they're terrified of getting it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And can you blame them with how much they screwed up in the past? I don't think we should be calling for WotC to be brave and make Dark Sun with their track record. You know what I mean? Come on, WotC, be brave. Make a game that's probably going to piss off lots of people.
Right. Yeah. Nacho says that they would be idiots to publish at the moment.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. 100%.
And the thing is, even when WotC tries to do well, people are so critical of them right now because that's just the tone, right?
Yeah.
Every WotC is the fun company to pick on right now. It's more than the D&D is not cool. It's that it's cool to hate on D&D right now. That's kind of the tone. So they would never do this right now. Yeah. But what's interesting is I don't know. I just saw Mr. Welch's comment there. I wonder what it would be like if you did put like for mature audiences, like a sticker on it, right?
Yeah, I don't know, because it's so hard to write things that are universal, because there's no standardization among D&D tables, and there's for all we know there are hundreds of thousands of people playing Dark Sun and they're just not talking about it. Because you could play a game at your table, and if you don't tell anyone who wasn't at that table, no one will ever know that it happened. So you can play Dark Sun all you want. You can and there, I don't know specifically of any, but I'm sure there are 5th edition products out there that are trying to be like Dark Sun in all but the name, and probably some of the more difficult aspects.
There is a Dark Sun similar product for Shadow Dark. I haven't picked it up and read it, but I know that it's out there. And so that's an option if you're looking for that kind of content. I also don't think that many D&D players really focus on, elaborate storytelling and themes. And, I mean, Jim, you're a professional writer, right? I've been playing this game for 40 years, and like, I get bored with just simple dungeon crawls. Like I want a rich, storytelling setting that my players can engage in. But I don't know that most D&D players are really thinking that much about theme and plot and character development. I think a lot of people just approach this as, kind of beer and pretzels, let's kill monsters.
Yeah.
And you can certainly do that in Dark Sun and not tackle any of those societal issues. You can kind of ignore but all of that stuff that we talked about that could be problematic, and just run Mad Max D&D, right?
Well, speaking of being a writer, there is something Will said in his video that I wanted to call out. He said all fantasy books are about the real world. Incorrect. That's a bad assumption to make, that all fantasy is a metaphor designed to represent a real world story. Don't make that assumption. I think it really comes down, at the end of the video, Will says, I think you should be allowed to run slavery in your game if you want. And the thing is, the word allowed is the entirely wrong word there. Saying, I think you should be allowed, that's going to piss off people. That's going to make people mad who are like, wait, who are you to tell me what I can do at my table?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to run slavery in your game, go right ahead. I would strongly recommend that you have a very high level of trust with the people that you're going to be running with. If you're going to run something like Dark Sun, you need to know what your players are going to have problems with before you run it. And if you know that, and if you know the kind of game everyone likes, and if you know what they're comfortable with, you can run whatever you want. Right? There's no question of being allowed to run something. You can do whatever you want. It's a make-believe game. And nobody's gonna watch you unless you put it on the internet.
Yeah. Yep. The other thing too, talking about the idea of publishing Dark Sun, is I don't know that Dark Sun really sold all that well. In fact, I'm assuming they were talking about it because of Will's video, but I tuned in to Roll for Combat's their weekly podcast. I didn't watch the whole thing. I just caught a little bit of it. And they had Derek on from Knights of Last Call, which is a Pathfinder YouTube channel. And he was talking with Stephen Glicker and Mark Cypher about Dark Sun and older versions of D&D and all that sort of stuff. And those late second edition settings, I don't think they sold very well at all. Because my understanding, this is one of the things they were talking about, is that those settings kind of competed with each other, right?
Right.
Like my group, we played Dragonlance, and once we started playing Dragonlance, we stayed with Dragonlance. Like we went from Greyhawk to Dragonlance. So we didn't play Forgotten Realms. We didn't play Dark Sun. We didn't play Spelljammer. Because once we were, neck deep into Dragonlance, that was our setting. And I think that seemed to be the trend, is that a lot of people back then, picked whatever their favorite setting was. And I'm sure there were some folks who were playing Dark Sun and, thought Dragonlance was dumb, but I don't know that a lot of those second edition products really sold well at all. We know that, TSR collapsed because, they had serious financial struggles. So,
Well, we know that they don't have good institutional memory and are prone to stepping on rakes, but this does seem like one lesson they have learned is about, like Sabretooth was talking about the fragmentation and what you were getting at, Brad, about the fragmentation of different systems, and that they haven't really done that with fifth edition. They've mostly kept most things in the Forgotten Realms. There were, a couple Eberron books, there were a couple of Ravenloft books, but aside from that,
Yeah, Ghost of
like we get
Saltmarsh is the only Greyhawk book out of fifth
right,
edition.
like we get mythic heroes of whatever that one setting, but they didn't like release a bunch of adventures for it. And maybe the only reason we got Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft was because Curse of Strahd sold so well. They're gonna go about it smarter and tease a new world. I find it very curious that they made Greyhawk like the setting in the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide. Like it's all Greyhawk, but then as far as I can tell, everything WotC's putting out in 2025 is Forgotten Realms.
Mm-hmm.
So like they didn't switch like a lot of people were thinking they were going to, and that Greyhawk would be the default setting. I think they're still afraid of fragmentation from 2014,
Right.
and they should be, right? Because it didn't work out that good for them in 2E through 4E.
Yeah. Mr. Welch mentions that he found numbers on EN World. Yeah. How does that compare to like Spelljammer, Dragonlance, and Planescape? Were they all in about that same category? That would be interesting to know what those numbers were, like the sales comparison between the different settings.
Yeah. All right, so we have got to move on, and we are moving from one deathly serious topic to another deathly serious topic because I want to tell you about Duckborg. This is a game that I just stumbled across. It was stocked on May 10th. It is currently May 16th and it's out of stock. So Duckborg is flying off the shelves. Duckborg is flying off and this is funny because Morkborg is already kind of an ironic game. In some ways, Morkborg is kind of tongue in cheek.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But Duckborg here goes full out with an 80-page book that includes is a grindhouse fantasy role-playing game about human duck hybrids banding together in pursuit of death or treasure before the world ends. Yeah. But then you've got stuff like power medallions, extra catastrophes, cartoon catastrophes. I'm very curious to see those.
Huh.
The Doom City of Duckborg, Hookbell Henge, like a Sainted Park Minions, Fizzbang Soda Factory, Grizzly Gill's Dining Establishment. If you ever want to have a fight to the death with like two goblins outside Fizzbang Soda Factory, it seems like Duckborg would be the game for that.
Yeah, so this is basically Morkborg meets DuckTales, is what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and if you hate that, then you have no connection to joy in your life.
It's interesting.
If this doesn't sound fun to you, then you've lost touch with joy. I don't think we probably have a whole lot to say about Duckborg. But it sounds fun.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's interesting. Interesting there because Dragon's Bane has a duck race in their game, like a species you can play as a duck bait species. So I wonder if you could take Duckborg and do a mashup with the Dragon's Bane setting.
I am Loquactus of Borg. Bam. Mr. Welch says Spelljammer bombed. Dragonlance was huge. Planescape was about on par with Dark Sun, according to Ben Riggs.
That's my memory of it. Is that Dragonlance was the most popular of those, and that Dark Sun and Planescape were not as popular as Dragonlance. I didn't realize Spelljammer was that unpopular. Because it seems like Spelljammer is one of those settings that everybody wants to like. But I don't know how many people actually played the setting itself.
Yeah, when I Spelljammer was before my time, but my older brothers, they played Star Frontiers. They never played Spelljammer. My older brother and their friends, they played a lot of Star Frontiers, probably more that than D&D.
Mm.
That was my main memory, was them playing Star Frontiers and getting blasted with lasers and me thinking, oh, someday I'm gonna play this cool game just like them. Um, all right.
Well, Jim, I had a copy of Star Frontiers, and I could never get my friends to play it because they always wanted to play D&D back when
Oh,
I was a kid. So, if we want to heal our 13-year-old selves, we could get together and run a short a Star Frontiers campaign.
maybe that's it. Maybe that's what I've been missing, is Star Frontiers.
Yeah.
Anyway, so moving on, the next thing is recently there's a new supplement on D&D Beyond, Heliana's Guide to Monster Hunting. And I don't know a whole lot about this. I just wanted to bring it up because I have a monster hunting system available in the Warden class. The Warden
Mm.
class includes subsystems for monster hunting and cooking, preservation of meat, selling monster meat and monster parts, eating them. I have all those things, and it's about a page and a half of rules. Covers all that. But if you want some complicated, messy rule system, I guess you could use this Heliana's Guide to Monster Hunting if you really need to live out your senshi from Delicious and Dungeon Fantasy and see what flumps taste like. Don't eat the flumps; they're too cute. Um, I don't know, Brad. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Um, I didn't take too much time to dive into that. My first impression was exactly what you said. It seems a little more overcooked. Um, I like this idea of monster hunting and like like harvesting monster parts for magic items uh, and cooking monsters and all that sort of stuff. I love that idea. Um, I think whenever you tack on an extra set of rules to your game, especially if you're tacking it on to something like 5e or 5.5 that already has a decent amount of crunch to it, I think anything you tack on needs to be efficient, streamlined design.
Yep.
So, because when you tack on extra stuff to an already crunchy game, you're adding layers that are going to slow down gameplay.
And I think something like this, a robust rule set for monster hunting could work if this is what you wanted your campaign to be.
Mm-hmm.
If you told your dungeon master, hey, look, we don't want to dungeon delve for 20 levels. We want to be entrepreneurs. We want to hunt monsters and harvest the parts and turn it into a business, and we want to, like, that's the campaign we want, then perfect. This seems like, because you're going to be able to ditch a lot of the 5e rules, if this is really all they want to focus on. It's like hunt monsters, cook them, turn it into an economy, and and that doesn't sound fun to me, but if that's how you roll, this would be perfect for that, probably.
Yeah, and this is where I kind of wish that D&D was more modular. We've talked about this before, that the
Yeah.
2014 version seems like it was designed to be modular. Um, and if it was more modular and you could strip out, like I could see you taking, 5e, the 2014 version, stripping out like skills and feats, and then adding in these kind of robust monster hunting rules, right? If you pulled some content out to make room for these extra rules, and that was the theme of the campaign, um, I agree with you, Jim, that would be a good way to do it.
Yeah, I know when Delicious in Dungeon came out, that was the hot thing. It was like for a couple months after, was like monster cooking supplements on the DM's Guild, and everybody wanted their Delicious in Dungeon campaign. It's an awesome show. Did you watch it, Brad?
I watched some of it. I haven't finished it, so no spoilers.
Oh yeah, it's good. It's
Yeah,
a lot longer than I expected. It's like 20 something episodes.
yeah. I think I'm like 6 or 7 episodes in.
Oh, Man, it's so good. I won't spoil anything, but a lot of recognizable adventure ahead of you, I will say. You'll be
Yeah.
like that meme of Leo DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood when he's like pointing to you'll do a lot of that. The only other thing we had on the agenda was, I don't know, did you guys talk about this last week?
I think we did briefly, but to follow up on the monster eating, monster harvesting design, one thing that I just discovered this week is Roll for Combat is now doing Shadow Dark content. Roll for Combat has always done 5e and Pathfinder stuff. They're most notable in the Pathfinder community for their Pathfinder stuff. But they've started doing Shadow Dark content, and they have like 3 Shadow Dark books coming out, and one of them includes a monster hunter type class and a cook class. So they have delved into this this idea of harvesting monsters and that sort of thing. Now, and that seems like if you want to go that approach, that might be a cool way to do it, to add it on to Shadow Dark, because Shadow Dark is a more rules light system. So if they've got a good set of rules there, it might be worth looking into.
Nice.
Or like you said, you just play Jim's Ranger substitute.
Why would you go anywhere else? The Warden is the perfect 5e class. It is all things to all people. No, it's not. But if you think the Ranger isn't, the Ranger's just a little, the Warden is for you. Anyway, the SRD 5.2.1 came out. You guys mentioned it last week. There's very little changed. It's almost not newsworthy, except some spells that need to get nerfing done got nerfed.
I think the most important thing about this is the fact that WotC followed through on their promise to put this stuff in the Creative Commons. I think that's the most important thing here, is that 2 years ago now, our community spoke up, our voice was heard, and they put the 5e rules and now the 5.5 rules into Creative Commons, and I think that's really good for the hobby.
And the lesson to learn is that if we band together, we can bully a company into doing our bidding. Don't ever forget that. We bullied them into doing our bidding. We'll do it again if we have to. So keep your nose clean, WotC, or we'll do it again. Anyway, on that positive note, I think we're gonna wrap things up here. And Brad and I are gonna play the TTRPG together on Monday. I'm looking forward to that, and you may or may not see that on the channel in the future. But very exciting stuff. So tell the people goodbye, Brad.
Thanks everybody for watching. I always have fun talking to everybody.
We'll see you later. Bye.